there was a big story coming out of the NFL draft surrounding a potential number one overall pick. Abdul Carter, the edge rusher out of Penn State, has a stress reaction in his right foot, and he's going to need to decide soon if he either is going to have surgery and get a screw inserted in his foot. Doesn't sound great. Or he can play through it and say, I don't need this. I'll just play through it. If he does get the surgery, he would miss, it looks like, 8 weeks. He would be ready for the start of the season, but obviously he would miss significant time during the offseason. Joining a new team, obviously that's when you learn the playbook, when you get acquainted with your new teammates. And of course, this is a huge investment. Whoever takes the number one overall pick is, this is the future of their franchise. If you mess up on the number one overall pick, you are putting your team underwater for like multiple years, it feels like, and maybe even more than that. So, Lucy, when you saw this, what kind of flashed across your mind?
Yeah, first of all, sad because the timing of this is not fortunate because the draft is coming up. But for teams who are considering taking him as their number one pick or whomever is considering taking him, I would have concerns because first of all, you don't want him to be a bust if you take him and then he's a bust. That is a nightmare. That is a nightmare. But would he be ready for the start of the season? You could say, yes, he will be, but you never know how a recovery goes, unfortunately. So I would have concerns. Red flags would be up about this, and I might be rearranging my mock draft at this point because first of all, we don't know what he's going to do. Will he have the screw? Will he play through it? And so recovery time is up in the air. Recovery time is unknown. So I would be concerned. And that was my first thought was if you are considering taking him, you might rethink that
now. Did I say Jalen Carter? I hope I didn't say Jalen Carter. I meant Abdul Carter. Hopefully I didn't say that. I've had Jalen Carter on the brain of the Eagles, so I don't know what I said, but hopefully I didn't say Jalen.
We are in NFL
But Abdul Carter is the name. Obviously, both very talented defensive players. But for Abdul Carter, yes, it's sad because he could potentially lose a lot of money because that's the thing in the NFL draft. If you fall even a few spots, like that's millions of dollars that are taken off your plate. But the positive spin is he could go to a contender. If he falls far enough in the draft, that we've seen this before, where if you're willing to be patient for some of these guys that maybe don't make an immediate impact, you can get a really good player. Like, aren't we all going to shake our heads and throw up our hands if like the Eagles get him? Or if the Chiefs get him, or one of these teams that do not need a generational talent ends up, oh, he just fell to us. I'm not going to be surprised, though.
Yeah, it could be a team that becomes the Dodgers of the NFL if they get him, and then there's like, oh, they get all the good players, and now they are a monster team, and that could happen too, and that's why everything happens for a reason, and maybe the reason is the Chiefs will get better, or the Eagles will get better, and that he will be perfectly fine, and Abdul Carter will have the season of a lifetime on the way to a Hall of Fame career with the Chiefs, and the Chiefs will not three-peat, but maybe they will go on to, and that could very, very well happen.
Yeah, but I think if you miss on a defensive prospect, it's not as bad of a sting as if you miss out on a generational quarterback. And I think that's probably the thought of a lot of these franchises, is if you pass on one of these quarterbacks in the draft and you need a quarterback, you don't have a good quarterback at the time. You got to get somebody. And you pass on one of these quarterbacks that, even though Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward don't look like the generational talents that we've seen in past drafts, if you pass on these guys for a defensive player that now is probably going to have a screw in his foot, and say he, re-aggravates this injury and he's not somebody who is a long-term play, like think about how long quarterbacks last in the NFL if they're good. Like Tom Brady played to what age? And obviously he is the outlier, but even some of these other quarterbacks, like look at Joe Flacco. He's still going. So it just feels like for long-term investments, this feels to me like those top teams that have the top overall picks. Now it feels like the gentle nudge to say, hey, I probably should just go with a quarterback.
Yeah, and that could end up being the story of the draft, is that a team that maybe wasn't going to take a quarterback does, or that Abdul Carter goes to a team that, is very good, but then he bolsters the team a lot. And so it will be very interesting to see where he ends up. And, now does a team reevaluate, do they take a quarterback instead if they were planning to take him in the first place?
Yeah. So now it feels like my Titans will squarely be looking at quarterbacks, but who knows? Who knows what the Titans are going to do? They've got a new GM. They've got a head coach in Brian Callahan that's kind of on the hot seat after just one season. So I will say the intrigue is still there. I still think it's going to be a very interesting draft night to see who goes number one overall.